I want you to settle yourself and receive this as something living, not merely language arranged on a page, because what is happening around you and within you is not ordinary, not accidental, and not disconnected from the deeper current that has been guiding your life even in the moments when you thought you were wandering without direction. And you must understand that the heaviness you have carried, the tiredness that felt woven into your bones, the invisible pressure that followed you from morning into night was never meant to be your permanent state. It was a season, and that season is giving way right now to something that does not begin on the outside, but rises from the innermost place of your being where renewal first takes root before it ever shows itself in your circumstances. And you may not have language for this shift yet, but you can feel it like a subtle loosening, like tight knots inside you, slowly releasing, like a deep breath your soul has been waiting to take. And this is your sign that a turning point is not approaching from a distance, but unfolding in the present moment. Because the timing over your life is not random, and the path that led you here through delays, disappointments, and silent battles no one else fully saw has been part of a preparation that is now meeting its appointed hour. And even if part of you feels unsure, even if your mind tries to measure whether you are ready, your heart only needs to stay open, because readiness is not perfection. It is willingness, and willingness is enough for a new beginning to take hold. What is being lifted from you is not only emotional strain, but the deeper sense of being held back, as if life kept moving while you stood still, as if effort did not match outcome, as if unseen resistance kept slowing what should have flowed, and that experience was real. But it was not the final word over you, because now the pattern over your life is shifting from restriction to release, from survival to restoration, and this is happening at a level deeper than surface motivation. It is a reordering of your inner world, where strength begins to replace depletion, where clarity begins to replace confusion, where quiet confidence begins to replace the habit of doubting yourself before you even try. And this is why the change may first show up in subtle ways, in the way you carry your body with less weight, in the way your thoughts feel less tangled, in the way hope rises without you forcing it. Because renewal always starts within and then moves outward. And what begins as an unseen realignment becomes visible in your energy, your posture, your presence, and even the light in your eyes. You are not being restored for the sake of appearance, not so you can impress or draw attention, but so you can step into the purpose that has been waiting for you on the other side of this long inner season. Because there are things you are meant to build, words you are meant to speak, comfort you are meant to offer, influence you are meant to carry, and you could not have carried them fully while weighed down by what you have been shedding. So this renewal is not random kindness. It is preparation. It is alignment. It is your life being brought back into harmony with the design that existed before discouragement tried to redefine you. And as this harmony returns, others will notice something different about you, even if they cannot explain it. They will sense steadiness where there used to be strain, warmth where there used to be guardedness, assurance where there used to be hesitation, and that quiet transformation will speak louder than explanations. Because real change carries its own evidence. The fatigue that once felt normal is not your baseline anymore, and the energy rising in you is not a temporary rush, but a deeper recalibration. Like your whole system remembering how it was meant to function when not governed by stress and fear. And with that renewed vitality comes a return of joy that does not depend on perfect circumstances but grows from inner peace. And you will find yourself engaging with life again, stepping toward responsibilities you once avoided, smiling without forcing it, initiating conversations you once delayed. Because confidence rooted in inner restoration is different from surface bravado. It is calm, it is grounded, it does not shout, it simply moves forward. There is a sense of acceleration attached to this season, not frantic speed but meaningful momentum, as if things that stayed stuck begin to move, as if doors that seemed sealed begin to open, as if connections appear at the right moment without endless striving. And this is not coincidence. It is what happens when your inner life comes back into alignment with your deeper purpose, because alignment reduces friction, and what once required exhausting effort begins to flow with less resistance. And you may wake up one day soon and realize that your reality feels different, not because everything changed overnight in a dramatic display, but because enough small right shifts have added up to a new direction, and you will trace it back to this quiet inner turning point where you chose to believe that renewal was possible for you too. Your belief is not pretending. It is participation in what is already beginning. It is the way you keep your heart in step with the unfolding. And faith in this sense is not blind optimism, but trust that the movement you feel inside you is meaningful, that the nudges you sense toward change are not random impulses but guidance toward a better alignment. And as you lean into that trust, opportunities that once passed you by may circle back in new forms. Ideas you once dismissed may return with clarity, and paths you thought were closed may reveal another entrance, because nothing that truly belongs in your journey is permanently lost. It may be delayed, reshaped, or rerouted, but it is not erased. The weight of the past, the regret over time you cannot reclaim, the pressure to catch up, these are burdens you are being invited to set down, because your timeline is not a competition, and your value is not measured by how quickly you achieved what others achieved. And as that comparison loosens its grip, you breathe easier, you think clearer, you move with less inner tension, and this lightness is not irresponsibility. It is freedom from unnecessary weight, and from that freedom comes better decisions, wiser pacing, and a more sustainable strength that carries you forward without burning you out again. You are not behind, you are not forgotten, and you are not too late for the life that still waits to unfold through you. Because purpose is not limited by years lost to struggle. It is activated the moment you align with it, and alignment can happen in an instant, even if the journey to get there took a long time. And what is beginning now may feel sudden compared to the slow stretch behind you. But sudden breakthroughs are often the visible result of long, unseen preparation. And you have been preparing even when you thought you were merely surviving. As this renewal deepens, you may notice old patterns loosening their hold, thoughts that used to dominate losing their authority, fears that once felt convincing sounding less believable, because your inner narrative is being rewritten by experience, not just by positive phrases, but by the lived reality of growing strength. And this inner shift affects how you speak, how you respond, how you choose, and you begin to act from a place of assurance rather than anxiety. And that changes the trajectory of your days in ways that compound over time. Some things may fall away in this season. Relationships, routines, roles, or expectations that no longer match who you are becoming. And these endings are not always comfortable, but they create space. And space is necessary for what is next to take root. And you are not being stripped without purpose. You are being made room for. And what enters that space will fit you better, will support your growth rather than restrict it, and will align with the direction your life is turning. There may have been unseen pressures around you, negativity, discouraging words, subtle influences that drained more than you realized, and part of your restoration is the lifting of that weight, the breaking of patterns that kept repeating loss, delay, or self-sabotage, and you are stepping into a new freedom where you are not defined by what held you back before. And this freedom is not just emotional relief. It is a new starting point from which you can move without the same invisible resistance. And that is why progress may feel faster now, because you are no longer pushing against the same internal and external barriers. You are being invited to participate in this shift, to speak in agreement with the life rising in you, to choose trust over constant doubt, to act on the quiet guidance that urges you forward, because renewal is offered, but it is also walked into. And each step you take in alignment reinforces the change, making it more established, more visible, more real in your daily experience. And as you do, you become a living example that restoration is possible, that setbacks are not final, that strength can return after long weakness, and others who see your journey may find courage for their own. Nothing you lost in the past seasons is beyond recovery in some form, because restoration is not always about returning things exactly as they were, but about bringing back their value in ways that fit who you are now. And sometimes the return is greater than the original, not just in quantity, but in depth, in maturity, in sustainability. And what you receive going forward may carry lessons and strength that make it more lasting than what came before. You are moving into a season of readiness, where your inner capacity has grown to hold what once would have overwhelmed you. And this is why things may begin to open now that did not open earlier. Because preparation and opportunity are meeting at the same time. And this meeting point is where meaningful change happens. And you are standing in it, whether you fully grasp it yet or not. And as you continue to say yes to growth, yes to trust, yes to forward movement, you will look back and see that this was the moment everything quietly began to turn in your favor. And as this turning continues to unfold, you will begin to recognize that what is happening is not only a change in circumstances, but a reintroduction to yourself, to the version of you that existed before discouragement shaped your expectations downward, before repeated delays taught you to hope cautiously, before exhaustion convinced you to shrink your dreams into something more realistic. Because deep within you, there has always been a knowing that you were meant to live with a sense of meaning, a sense of connection, a sense that your life was part of something greater than routine survival, and that knowing never left. It was only buried under layers of strain. And now those layers are being lifted, not all at once in a dramatic flash, but steadily, deliberately, like light increasing at dawn. And as that light grows, so does your ability to see yourself clearly again. You may notice that you are less interested in replaying old hurts, less drawn to conversations that revolve around complaint and limitation, less willing to agree with voices, inside or outside, that speak only of what cannot be done. And this is not denial of reality. It is discernment. It is your inner life choosing nourishment over depletion, choosing truth over fear, driven assumptions. And this shift in what you give your attention to is powerful, because attention is agreement, and what you consistently agree with begins to shape your experience. So as you agree more with possibility, with healing, with forward movement, you cooperate with the renewal already at work in you. There is also a strengthening of your inner boundaries happening. a quiet clarity about what belongs in your life and what does not, and you may find it easier to say no without guilt, easier to step back from what drains you, easier to protect your time, your energy, your focus. And this is not selfishness. It is stewardship, because you cannot pour into what you are meant to build if everything inside you is constantly being siphoned away. And as you honor this new clarity, you create conditions where growth can take root more deeply, where your restored strength is not immediately scattered but directed. And direction is what turns energy into progress. You are also being freed from the belief that your worth is tied only to productivity or external approval. Because part of your earlier exhaustion came from trying to prove your value again and again, trying to earn rest, trying to justify your existence through constant output. But your renewal includes a deeper understanding that you are already worthy of care, of peace, of joy. And from that understanding, your work becomes an expression of who you are, not a desperate attempt to become acceptable. And that difference changes everything. Because actions rooted in wholeness carry a different quality than actions rooted in fear. Do not be surprised if your dreams become clearer in this season. Not only the dreams you have at night, but the ones you hold for your future. Because as inner noise settles, your deeper desires rise to the surface, and some of these desires may surprise you. They may be bigger than what you have recently allowed yourself to imagine, but they are not appearing to tease you. They are signals, reminders of what still lives inside you, and you are not being shown these possibilities to frustrate you, but to prepare you, to stretch your sense of what is possible so that when opportunities come, you recognize them instead of dismissing them. There is also a healing of your relationship with time taking place, where you no longer feel chased by it or defeated by it, and instead you begin to experience moments more fully, to make decisions from presence rather than panic. And this shift alone reduces so much inner strain, because rushing is often a sign of fear, fear of missing out, fear of falling behind, fear that there will not be enough. But as trust grows in you, you move with intention rather than urgency. And paradoxically, this calmer pace often leads to more meaningful progress, because you are acting from clarity instead of reaction. You are learning to listen again to the quiet guidance within you, the gentle sense that nudges you towards certain choices and away from others. And earlier you may have ignored that voice because it did not always make immediate logical sense, or because you were too tired to follow it. But now, as your inner life strengthens, that guidance feels clearer. And when you follow it, even in small things, you build confidence in your ability to move in harmony with the deeper flow of your life. And that confidence becomes a foundation you can stand on when larger decisions arise. The restoration happening in you is comprehensive, touching not only your emotions, but your thoughts, your physical well-being, your relationships, your sense of identity. And while not every area may look different overnight, there is a unifying thread running through all of it, a movement toward wholeness, toward integration, toward being the same person on the inside and the outside, no longer divided between who you feel called to be and who you think you have to be just to get by. And living from this integrated place brings a kind of peace that does not depend on everything being perfect, because it comes from congruence, from being aligned within yourself. As you continue in this season, there may be moments where old doubts try to resurface, where circumstances briefly look like the past, where progress feels slower than you hoped, but these moments do not cancel the transformation. They are simply reminders that growth is a journey, not a single event. And when you meet these moments with the new awareness you are gaining, with patience instead of panic, with trust instead of despair, you reinforce the new pattern rather than slipping back into the old one. And each time you choose this, your footing in this new way of living becomes more secure. You are becoming someone who carries hope, not as a fragile wish, but as a steady undercurrent. Someone whose presence brings calm rather than tension. Someone who can walk into a room and quietly shift the atmosphere, simply because you are no longer ruled by the same fears that once dominated you. And this influence is not about control, it is about resonance, because inner peace tends to invite peace. Inner confidence tends to invite trust, and as you embody what is being restored in you, you contribute to a wider field of renewal beyond just your own life. The path ahead of you is not meant to be walked in isolation, and as you step further into your restored self, you will likely find new connections forming. People who meet you at this level of growth, who share your desire for depth, for meaning, for authenticity. And these relationships will feel different from ones rooted only in habit or convenience, because they will support who you are becoming rather than reinforcing who you were when you were more limited. And through these connections, your journey will be enriched, your perspective broadened, and your strength multiplied. What is most important now is that you continue to agree with the renewal rather than arguing with it. That you allow good to enter without immediately questioning whether you deserve it. That you let progress unfold without sabotaging it through fear of losing it. Because receiving is sometimes harder than striving, but it is part of wholeness. And as you practice receiving, rest, support, opportunity, kindness, you anchor yourself in the truth that life is not only about struggle, it is also about grace, about unexpected openings, about help appearing at the right time. You are not at the end of your story. You are at the beginning of a new chapter that is being written from a stronger place. And even if you cannot see every detail yet, you can sense the direction. You can feel the forward pull, and that is enough for now, because clarity often increases as you move, not before. And each step you take in trust reveals the next. And as this unfolds, you will come to see that what once felt like the breaking point was actually the turning point. The place where what was no longer sustainable gave way to what is more aligned, more whole, more alive, and you will be grateful that you did not give up in the in-between. Because this new season, the one you are stepping into now, carries a depth of peace and a strength of purpose that could only have been formed through everything you have walked through to get here. And as you keep walking forward in this unfolding season, you will slowly realize that the greatest evidence of change is not found in dramatic displays, but in the quiet consistency growing within you. The way you recover more quickly from discouragement, the way you pause before reacting, the way you choose understanding over impulse, because these small inner victories are signs that your foundation is being strengthened, and a strong foundation supports a life that does not collapse under pressure. And you are being built from the inside in such a way that future challenges will meet a different version of you than the one that struggled before. A version that bends without breaking, that feels without being overwhelmed, that thinks without spiraling into fear. There is also a deepening trust forming between you and the unseen guidance that has been leading you. A sense that you are not navigating life alone even when external support seems thin. And this trust does not remove effort from your life, but it changes the quality of your effort, because you no longer strain from panic, but move from partnership, from the awareness that you are cooperating with something wiser than your limited perspective. And this awareness brings a steadiness to your decisions, a patience in your waiting, and a humility that keeps you open to learning rather than rigid in your assumptions. You're being taught to recognize that delays were not always denials, that closed paths protected you from outcomes that would not have served your growth, and while that understanding may not erase the disappointment you once felt, it reframes it, allowing you to see your journey not as a series of random frustrations, but as a guided process where even detours had purpose. And from this perspective, resentment begins to lose its grip, and in its place comes gratitude for the ways you were preserved, redirected, and shaped into someone with greater depth, empathy, and resilience. Your inner world is becoming a place of refuge rather than a battlefield, and this is a profound shift because when your own thoughts and emotions are no longer constantly at war, you conserve energy. You think more clearly, you act more wisely, and this inner peace does not mean you never feel sadness or frustration again, but it means those feelings no longer define the entire landscape of your mind. They pass through instead of taking over, and you remain anchored in a deeper calm that reminds you storms are temporary, but your core is steady. As this steadiness grows, your sense of identity also becomes less dependent on fluctuating circumstances, and you stop labeling yourself by your worst moments, your past mistakes, or seasons of struggle, and instead, you begin to see yourself through the lens of growth, as someone in motion, someone learning, someone evolving. And this self-understanding frees you from the trap of shame that once made you hide or hold back, because you realize that imperfection is not disqualification. It is part of being human, and what matters most is your willingness to keep moving toward wholeness. You may find that your capacity to forgive increases, not because what happened was insignificant, but because you no longer want to carry the weight of bitterness into the future you are stepping into. And forgiveness in this sense is not pretending pain did not occur. It is choosing not to let past wounds dictate present possibilities. And this release creates space in your heart, space where joy, creativity, and connection can flourish. And the energy that was once tied up in replaying old stories becomes available for building new ones. There is also a sharpening of your intuition about what aligns with your path and what distracts from it, and you will begin to sense more quickly when something feels off, when an opportunity is not truly for you. When a situation asks you to compromise parts of yourself that are meant to remain intact, and honoring these signals is part of your restoration, because self-betrayal was one of the hidden sources of your earlier exhaustion, and now you are learning to remain loyal to your deeper values, to your calling, to the truth taking root in you. And this loyalty builds self-respect, which in turn strengthens your confidence. Your voice is also changing, not just in tone but in substance, because you are speaking from lived experience rather than borrowed ideas. From insight shaped by struggle and healing, and people are drawn to authenticity, to words that carry the weight of truth, and without striving for attention, you may find that others listen more closely, that your presence carries influence simply because you are real, grounded, and aligned. And this influence is not about status. It is about impact, about the quiet ways your journey gives others permission to believe in their own renewal. The fear that once told you it was safer to stay small is losing its authority. And you may feel a gentle but persistent pull to step beyond old limits, to try things you once postponed, to express parts of yourself you kept hidden. And this expansion may feel unfamiliar at first, But it is not recklessness. It is growth. It is you growing into the space that has been waiting for you. And each time you step forward despite lingering nerves, you reinforce the truth that courage is not the absence of fear, but movement in spite of it. You are also developing a healthier relationship with rest, understanding that restoration requires cycles, that you are not meant to be in constant output, and honoring your need for pause does not slow your progress. It sustains it, and as you allow yourself rest without guilt, you return to your work, your relationships, your responsibilities with greater clarity and energy. And this rhythm prevents the burnout that once made everything feel heavy, because now you are living in balance rather than extremes. Your perspective on challenges is shifting as well, and instead of seeing them only as threats, you begin to see them as teachers, as opportunities to apply the strength you have gained. And this does not mean you welcome difficulty for its own sake, but it means you are less shaken by it, because you know you are not the same person who faced earlier trials. You have grown, and growth changes outcomes, and this confidence in your capacity allows you to face the future with a steadier heart. You are becoming more present to beauty, to small joys, to moments that once passed unnoticed because your mind was too crowded with worry. And this increased awareness enriches your life in ways that do not depend on major milestones, because contentment begins to coexist with ambition. And you can appreciate where you are even as you move toward where you are going. And this balance brings a deeper satisfaction than constant striving ever could. All of this is part of a larger unfolding that is still in motion, and you do not need to rush it or control every detail. Your role is to stay open, to stay aligned, to keep saying yes to the growth placed before you. And as you do, you will continue to see evidence that your life is not random, that your renewal is real, and that the path ahead, though not without effort, is marked by a new kind of support, a new kind of clarity, and a new kind of strength that carries you forward with a quiet assurance that you are exactly where you need to be to become who you were always meant to be. And as this chapter continues toward its fullness, you will come to understand that everything you have been walking through has been leading you into a deeper partnership with life itself, where you are no longer merely reacting to what happens, but consciously participating in what is being formed through you. And this awareness changes the tone of your days, because you wake not only to tasks, but to meaning, not only to responsibilities, but to opportunities to express the person you are becoming. And even ordinary moments begin to carry quiet significance, because you recognize that growth is not confined to dramatic milestones. It is woven into daily choices, into how you speak, how you think, how you treat yourself and others, and in this way, your life becomes a living reflection of the renewal that began within you. You will notice that fear no longer has the final word in your decisions, even if it still whispers at times, because you have learned to listen more deeply to the steady voice of trust rising beneath it. And this trust does not promise a life without uncertainty, but it assures you that you can move through uncertainty without losing yourself. And that assurance is freedom. The freedom to step into new spaces, to accept new responsibilities, to receive new blessings without shrinking back. And each time you choose movement over paralysis, you reinforce the new pattern taking shape in you, the pattern of a person who is guided rather than driven, grounded rather than grasping, There will be moments ahead when you look back and hardly recognize the version of you who felt so weighed down, so unsure, so tired in ways that words could not fully explain. And instead of judging that earlier self, you will feel compassion, because you will see how hard you tried with the strength you had at the time, and you will honor that part of your journey as necessary. As the soil from which this stronger season grew, and this compassion toward your past self will deepen your compassion toward others, making you gentler, more patient, more understanding of struggles that are not always visible from the outside. The sense of calling that has been stirring in you will also become clearer, not as a single grand assignment written across the sky, but as a consistent direction, a pull towards certain kinds of work, certain kinds of service, certain ways of showing up in the world. And as you follow this direction step by step, you will find that fulfillment is less about arriving at a final destination and more about living in alignment along the way. And this alignment brings a quiet joy that is not dependent on applause, because it comes from knowing you are being true to what has been placed in your heart. You are also learning that abundance is not only material, though provision has its place, but abundance of peace, of clarity, of healthy relationships, of meaningful contribution. And as these forms of abundance grow in your life, you begin to feel rich in ways you once overlooked. And from that sense of inner richness, generosity flows more naturally, because you are no longer giving from emptiness but from overflow, and what you share, encouragement, wisdom, presence, carries genuine substance. The pace of your life may still vary, some seasons faster, some slower, but underneath those shifts will be a steady current of purpose that does not disappear when circumstances change. And this steadiness becomes your anchor, allowing you to navigate success without losing humility and difficulty without losing hope. And this balance is part of the maturity that your earlier struggles helped cultivate, preparing you not just to receive good things, but to handle them well. As you move forward, remember that you do not have to carry the entire future at once. You only need to be faithful to the step in front of you, because large transformations are lived through small, consistent choices, and the same presence that guided you into renewal will continue to guide you onward, adjusting your course when needed, opening and closing doors in ways that keep you aligned with what is best for your growth. And your role is to stay responsive, to stay willing, to keep your heart soft and your mind open. There will be people who cross your path who are drawn to the change in you, who sense the peace you carry, the strength that does not need to boast. And through simple interactions, conversations, shared moments, you will influence them more than you realize. Not by preaching, but by being. By embodying the possibility that healing, restoration, and forward movement are real. And in this way, your journey becomes part of a larger story, one where your renewal contributes to the renewal of others. When doubts try to revisit you, as they sometimes do, you will have memories to answer them with, lived evidence of how far you have come, of obstacles you once thought immovable that you now stand beyond. And these memories will serve as reminders that growth is not imaginary, that change has already occurred and continues to occur. And this confidence born from experience is steadier than blind optimism, because it is rooted in reality. You are stepping into a life that feels more like yourself, less forced, less heavy, more honest, more connected. And while challenges will still appear, they will meet a person who knows how to return to center, how to breathe, how to listen, how to trust, and this capacity is one of the greatest gifts of this season because it allows you to remain whole even when circumstances fluctuate, and wholeness is a deeper security than control ever was. So as this part of your journey draws to a close and another continues to open, carry this understanding with you. You are not the same as you were when this renewal began. You have been reshaped from within, strengthened in quiet ways, aligned with a deeper truth about who you are and what your life is for. And this alignment will keep guiding you long after these words fade from your immediate attention. Because what has been awakened in you is not dependent on language. It is a living awareness, a steady light within you. Walk forward with that light, not anxiously trying to prove anything, not fearfully looking over your shoulder, but steadily, confidently, or one step at a time, knowing that you are supported, that your growth is real, that your path has meaning, and that the same force that brought you through weariness into renewal continues to move with you, shaping what comes next into something deeper, stronger, and more beautiful than what you once believed was possible. Amen.